Okay, class, we're about to start the competency test review for fractions. I know that a few of you still have not passed this competency, but I'm going to put this on the internet so you all can have a quick reference. Also, I would strongly suggest that you have a separate sheet of paper for you to be able to write this down. Okay, number one, it says use less than, greater than, or equal to make a true sentence. We have 6/7 and we have 48 over 56. Now, how I told you all to do this was this here. Take the top of this first fraction times the bottom of this second fraction, and that will give you your first value, which we will have 6 times 56. Now, for the second value, we'll take the bottom of the first times the top of the second, and that will give us our second value, 7 times 48. Now we multiply 6 times 56 is 336. 7 times 48 is also 336. Now that means that both of these fractions are equal to each other. So your answer here will be equal. Now we move over here to B. We do the same thing. We take the top of the first times the bottom of the second, and that will give us our first answer. So we add 3 times 42. Now we'll take the bottom of the first times the top of the second. That will give us our second fraction, which would be 4 times 39. Now, let me separate this a little bit here. Okay, now we have 3 times 42, which will give us 126. 4 times 39, we have 6, carry our 3, that's 12 plus 3 is 156. Now remember, this first value represents the first fraction. This second value represents the second fraction. And we know this is 156 is larger than 126. So your answer here will be greater than. So that means that 39 over 42 is greater than 3/4. And that's it for problem 1A and B. Now we come here to problem 2. It says graph on the number line. Now this is how I told you all to do it. Start at 0 and we start counting. We go from 0 to 1. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. From 0 to 1 is 4 places. So all of these here would be 1/4. So this would be 1/4, and then this would be 2/4, which we know is 1/2, but we could get to that later. And this would be 3/4. Now, so it'd be 0, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and then 1, because 1 is really 4/4. We want to graph 3/4. So we'll put a point right here on 3/4. So we're done with that. Now we come here to B. B we have, I kind of skipped down there a little bit. B we have 3/2. Now we need to change this to a mixed number. Now to change this to a mixed number, we'll say 2 goes into 3 once, and we'll have a remainder of 1. So we know our final answer would be the number in front of the remainder, which is 1. Our denominator will remain 2, and our numerator will be the remainder. So it's 1 and 1/2. So we know this falls in between 1 and 2. So what we could do is we could start counting. Let's start from number 1. We'll go from 1, we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is how we would do it. We would say, so each one of these adds 1/4 to 1. So this would be 1 1/4. This would be 1 1/4. And you know I'm running out of room, so let me write it over here. The first tick will be 1 1/4. The second tick will be 1 2/4. The third tick will be 1 3/4. And then we know 2 will be the fourth tick. Now we look here, we want 1 1/2, but 2/4 can be simplified. Remember, 2 and 4 has 2 in common, so that's really 1 1/2. So now we go here to the graph here. So we know 2 tick marks will give us 1 1/2. So we will plot our point here at 1 1/2, and we're done. Now, we scroll down here to number 3. It says, given the diagram below, write the fraction that represents the A, shaded part of the diagram. Now, first of all, let's count how many of these blocks we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So our denominator would be 7. But our numerator, the shaded part, would be 3. So that's 3 over 7. Now B says the unshaded part. We know our denominator will stay 7, but our numerator will be all the unshaded parts, which would be 4. So that's 4 sevens. Now we come here to number 4. It says reduce the lowest terms. So this is what we do. We would take the prime factorization of 18 and the prime factorization of 21. Now, we know that 2 times 9 is 18, 2 is prime, 9 is not. 9 breaks down to 3 times 3. Now prime factorization of 18 is 2 times 3 times 3. Now 21 prime factorization, we add 3 times 7. 3 is prime and 7 is prime. So we add 3 times 7 for that. Now, what we're going to do now is do our fraction. 18 will be replaced with its prime factorization, which is 2 times 3 times 3. 21 will be replaced with its prime factorization, which would be 3 times 7. These 3's will simplify out, and you will be left with 6 over 7. Now, we scroll down here. Number 5, it says reduce 48 over 15 to its lowest terms, expressing as a mixed number. So, one thing we need to know is this here. Lowest terms and mixed numbers are not the same. Remember, simplifying a problem to its lowest terms does not mean mixed number. It just means simplifying out everything they have in common except 1. So let's do that first. So we're going to take the prime factorization of 48. So that'll be 2 times 24. And 24 we know breaks down to 3 and 8. And 8 breaks down to 2 and 4. And 4 breaks down to 2 and 2. Now all these are prime, so we have 4 2's and 1 3. Now we're going to do the prime factorization of 15. I'm going to put it here. Prime factorization of 15 is 3 and 5. Both of these are prime. So this is what we have. So we could take this 48 over 15 and we'll replace its values. 48 will be replaced with 4 2's and a 3. And 15 is replaced with 3 and a 5. So we simplify out what they have in common, which is these 3's. And we know multiplying 4 2's will give us 16, and our denominator would be 5. Now this is simplified, but now they ask us to express as a mixed number. So this is when we do our division. We can go down here and take 5 into 16. 5 goes into 16 3 times. And we have a remainder of 1. So our final answer would be 3, which is the number in front of the remainder. Our denominator would stay 5, and our numerator would be 1. So our final answer here is 3 1/5. Now we come here to number 6. We have mixed numbers added together. Now with addition of mixed numbers, this is how I tell you all to do it. Let's isolate these fractions first and do those. So we have 5 11s plus 9 11s. 5 plus 9 we know is 14. And we carry over our 11. Now 11 and 14 has nothing in common. So let's divide it out because this is an improper fraction. So we say 11 goes into 14 once. 14 minus 11 is 3. So you have a remainder of 3. So this answer here would be 1 and 3 over 11. Now, this is what we got from the fractions. Now we would take these whole numbers. We add 6 plus 2, which is 8. Now what we have to do, we have to combine this 8 with this 1 and 3 11s. So we'll say 8 plus 1 and 3 11s. Now with addition, we'll just bring this fraction down, and 8 plus 1 is 9. So we had 9 and 3 11s. Now we scroll down here to number 7. Now with number 7, we have to find a common denominator of 4 and 12. So we could go off here to the side. 4 breaks down to 2 and 2, and 12 breaks down to 2 and 6, and then 2 and 3. I'm going to circle those prime numbers. So the prime factorization of 4 is 2 and 2. Prime factorization of 12 is 2 2's and a 3. Now we have to do our least common denominator. Now this is what we would do. These are two separate numbers, 4 and 12. So we look at their prime factorization separately. Now we look here. We look for the smallest number, the smallest digit of all of the numbers, which is 2. But you notice there's two sets of 2's here and two sets of 2's here. So whenever you have the same amount of 2's in both numbers, you just write one set of those numbers. So it'll be two sets of 2's in your LCD. Now only one of these numbers have 3, so we bring the 3 down. Now we have to multiply this. 2 times 2 is 4 times 3 is 12. So now our common denominator is 12. So we'll write down our new common denominators. So we would take the new denominator divided by the old denominator. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So we'll multiply the numerator and denominator by 3. 3 times 3 is 9, and we know 3 times 4 was 12. So now we take 12 divided by 12, which is 1. So we'll multiply this numerator and denominator by 1. 5 times 1 is 5. Now we add them together. 9 12s plus 5 12s is 14 12s. Now we can simplify this. Now we already have the prime factorization of 12, which we did here, which is 2 2's and a 3. Now the prime factorization of 14, I'll write it right here, is 2 and 7. So we'll replace 14 with 2 and 7. So these two simplify out, and your final answer is 7 over 6, because it did not ask you to write this as a mixed number, and you didn't start with a mixed number. So our final answer here is 7 over 6. Now we come here to number 8. Now, we have a negative and a positive, so we know we're going to end up subtracting. But first we need to find the least common denominator. Now we already know 12's prime factorization, which we wrote over here. It was 2 2's and the 3. Now 10's prime factorization is 2 and 5. So now we want to do the LCD. Now we look here, both of these have 2's, but this have more 2's than the 10 does. So we bring down those two 2's. We have 1 3 and also 1 5. So now we multiply this. This will give us 60. So our common denominator of both of these fractions is 60. Now we do 60 divided by 12, which is 5. So we multiply numerator and denominator by 5. 5 times 7 is 35. Okay, now we go here. 60 divided by 10 is 6. So we multiply numerator and denominator by 6. 3 times 6 is 18. Now, our denominator stays 60. Negative 35 plus 18. Now we know we're going to subtract. And because 35 is furthest away from 0, we know our answer is going to be negative. So we could go off to the side and take 35 minus 18. You know, this would be 2, this would be 15. 15 minus 8 is 7. 2 minus 1 is 1. So it'll be a negative 17 over 60. And that's the final answer for that problem. Now we come here to number 9. Now, if you're ever subtracting mixed numbers, this is the perfect situation here. Now watch what happens. First, we're going to line this up vertically. So we have 8 minus 2 and 5/7. This 8 does not have a fraction, and since this bottom fraction is larger than, no fraction at all, we have to borrow one from this 8. So watch what happens here. First of all, our bottom fraction doesn't change. Now we borrow one from this 8, so we know that becomes a 7. Now the fraction we will use here from the one we borrowed, you always look at the denominator of this bottom fraction, which is 7. So the fraction that we will use is 7 over 7. Now explaining that, the reason why we will use that is because, remember, in order to subtract, you must have the same denominator. So why make your life hard? So by making this have the numerator and denominator of this denominator here, you could easily subtract. 7 7s minus 5 7s is 2 7s, and 7 minus 2 is 5. So we have 5 and 2 7s, and we're done with that problem. Now number 10, the first step you should do is line this up vertically. That should be your first step.